Hi, good morning. Welcome to Inside the Huddle. Steve, back from staring down bears and fly fishing, I guess.
Yeah, it was a great vacation, well needed, and it was just a great time with my family. There's nothing that shocks you back into reality than spending a week in Kalispell, Montana, and then when you land, hopping on the five. Where, I just spent a week with the closest thing around me was 50 acres away, and then you land and you get on the five, and you're like, well, here we are, we're back in the rat race, so to speak. So it's kind of interesting.
Two different lives. Well, we're glad you're back. You're always needed
Thank you.
here. So
Good to be back.
oh, recharge. That'll be nice.
Yes, sir.
So today we want to talk a bit about conversations that are going on right now with your clients, with your prospects, about what's going on in the market, whether we should wait, what's going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with home prices. And I thought we'd go over a little bit on how to do some easy calculations to help your clients see through some of the fog on all of this. And so I have some thoughts on the market that we'll get to later. I think, Steve, you and I differ somewhat on what we think the market, where it's going. So that'll be an interesting discussion. But I'm going to throw a couple calculations at you guys. And the first one, my favorite, is called the BevNap calculation. Does everyone know what a beverage napkin is? That's probably old school for a lot of you. That's the napkin at a bar when they give you a drink. So the idea is you're sitting with someone at the bar and they're thinking, maybe I'd like to buy a home. I don't know if I can. And you do the BevNap calculation. Now, I'm gonna give you the basic numbers and how it works, but here's the conclusion. Here's the takeaway you need to know. A mortgage costs about $6 per $1,000 of mortgage. Every $1,000 of mortgage costs about $6 a month, PITI. If you add in PMI, you might add in another 20 cents a month, maybe $6.20. Now, this varies depending on where interest rates are. Right now, it's probably closer to $5.80. But I mean, again, this is a BevNap calculation, right? So here's how this works. You're sitting with someone and they say, I don't know if I can afford a home. And you say, okay, what's your gross income per month? It's $10,000. Do you have any recurring debt? Right? This is the overarching lender conversation. You're just going to ask a couple questions. Yeah, I've got $1,000 a month in, car payments and things like that. Okay, your gross is $9,000. Lenders want to see anywhere from 1/3 to, on an FHA, sometimes as high as 1/2 of your gross income is what you can afford to pay. So if I'm being conservative, this person has $9,000 a month in gross. I say, well, you can afford at least $3,000 in a mortgage payment. 1/3, that's going to get through almost any type of loan. So $3,000 a month. Now here's the tricky part. Think about it for a second. How many sixes is that? If it's $6 per 1,000 and you can afford $3,000, I divide 3,000 by 6, I get 500. Therefore, you can afford 500,000 of mortgage. You can afford a $500,000 mortgage. A $500,000 mortgage is 500,000. That's $6 per 1,000, $3,000 a month. You go backwards and forwards. If you understand that, that's a quick 10-second calculation that you can have with people. Now, you got to get them with your lender, of course, but it puts you in the ballpark when you're talking to someone on whether they can even afford anything. That's the BevNap calculation. Now, you can play with this, right? Just go to any mortgage calculator, enter today's numbers, and then when you're done, you'll come up, like I used a $800,000 home with 20% down. That's a $640,000 mortgage at 3% I used. Calculate taxes, insurance, it comes out to $36.65 a month, PITI. Okay, that's 640,000 of mortgage at $36.65. That comes out to $5.72 per 1,000. So did a little better, but $6 per 1,000 is always going to have you in the ballpark. I'm going to stop there and make sure that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions on that? Steve, I know you know this is an old timers, right? This is back in our day of how we do quick calculations. But
Yeah, you're spot on. The math is what it was then is what it is today. So nothing to add there. You nailed it.
check back in. If rates go up 4 or 5%, we'll recalculate. It'll go up some. Okay, no hands raised. Okay, good. So then let's take this same concept and go a little further. Now we have people who are saying, sellers, I don't know if I want to sell my home. I think homes are going to keep going up. They may not. The question we ask is, what's more likely? Homes are going to go up a lot, or interest rates are going to come up out of the basement? Lowest interest rates, I've been in this business more than 30 years. I'll leave it there. No, never have rates been this low. So what happens to purchasing power when rates go up? That's what we want to show a seller. So what you do is you put in today's stuff. Again, I did $800,000 home, 20% down. We calculated 3%. We already know that was $36.65, right? Well, now let's change the payment. When you go to a mortgage calculator, put in a new interest rate. Let's say use what? 4.5%. No, use 4%. Let's just say it goes up 1 point. Then put in the same payment, that $36.65. I want my same payment at this new higher rate. Now how much mortgage can I get? The mortgage drops, the purchasing power drops $100,000. So we ask our sellers, look, if we hesitate, what's more likely? If rates go up 1%, the buyers lose $100,000 of purchasing power, which means your home loses value. Right? We're not going to get people who are looking at $250,000 higher homes coming down to your home now. Everybody's home drops along with the buyer's purchasing power. I'm looking at just pictures of faces, so I have no idea if this is making sense or not. Let's get a little more calculated, a little more complicated. Okay, the takeaway from that is if you have a mortgage calculator, punch in the new rate, punch in the same payment that the buyer wanted to begin with, and you'll see the new loan amount, how it drops. That's the loss of purchasing power. Okay, I've got one more. Steve, should I go one more? Or
yeah, go for it. And then we'll talk about probably the conversation you have to have when you have a seller that's on the fence or a buyer that's on the fence. I mean, that's just as important. So knowing these numbers, right, allows you to effectively consult people on their best possible outcome here. So that's what it's important, right? Yeah.
And you've got to be able to use numbers. Okay, here's the biggest one we're seeing right now. I don't know if I want to buy. I think home prices are going to come down. I think I'll wait. So let's run that scenario with the buyer.
Right.
Let's say that home prices drop 10%, which would be massive, right? That would be a huge drop in home prices. At the same time, let's say rates go from 3 to 4.5.
Yeah,
that's not nearly, those aren't even equal. A 1.5 increase in rate isn't that big a deal with what's going on in our world. A 10% drop in home prices would be a massive, something went massively wrong. But still, we'll benefit ourselves and say that it was 10% versus 1.5. I'm not going to do all the math again. Your payment increases by over $200 a month. So the buyer that waited, because let's say they were right, home prices cratered, they went down 10%, and rates went up 1.5%. Their monthly payment went up over $200 a month.
Right. Was
that a smart move? What I'm trying to get across in all of this and the conversation that you want to have with your clients is interest rates are always more important than price. Interest rates are more important than price when it comes to being a buyer or a seller. It's what has the actual day-to-day impact on people. We know what prices do over time. They always go up over time. For 50 years, for 100 years, you can go back and track that. Unless you're, what I tell clients, unless you're in the military, unless we're looking at a 2-year window and you might be getting transferred out, the home prices are not something to be concerned with. They're cyclical, but they trend up always. More so now.
Right.
But interest rates will knock you out.
Yeah, you've really got to coach your buyers up here because there's so much buyer fatigue because they've been missing out. what you need to know is the last time I checked, Sean, in North County. Well, let me bet. There are two numbers you have to know when you go to sit down with a buyer, and you have to know them ice cold. You can't guess at them. You got to know them. That's what's your month supply of inventory, what's the current absorption rate, and then you want to know what the trend line is for inventory. So, there are parts, like we talk about the market. We've talked about this. There's no such thing as a real estate market. There's just your local market and the market you serve. So in North County, for example, there's less than a 30-day supply of inventory, and the absorption rate, last I checked, and it was give me 30 days or so ago, was roughly 19 to 20 days supply of inventory. The market was absorbing pretty much everything in sight, so I don't have the exact number. So then you look at what's the inventory trend. Well, in North County, particularly anything basically north of Loma Santa Fe, the inventory rate is still less than what it was a year ago. It's within 5 percentage points. So it's still pretty much flatlined. We have no new construction to speak of that's going to negatively or positively impact that, meaning that, builders have been caught behind the power curve here. They can't get inventory out fast enough. And then there were delays in supply. So parts of the country, think Arizona, parts of the East Coast, northern valleys of California, they're going to see a slight uptick in inventory as some of this new construction moves to market. And anytime you see a surge in new construction, you always see a tailing resale market surge. But that's Northern California. So there's no end in sight right now that I can see, at least in the next 6 months, that's going to, where we're going to produce an inventory surge that's going to negatively impact price. And so you've got to consult your buyers to keep punching. They got to keep going. They got to stay in there and keep, because right now with interest rates being what they are, you just have to commit to them that you're going to keep working really hard and that they have to stay in the fight because there's really no end in sight. And if they wait 6 months and the market depreciates another 1% in price, well, what do I need to tell you? I mean, my home that I live in has been averaging about a $40,000 increase in value per month. I live in Aviara. I'm in a track house. I'm in no place special.
It's crazy.
So let that detonate in your head for a sec. So in North County, now I don't know what it is in downtown, Sean. Maybe you could weigh in on that. But that's what I'm looking at. That's all I care about is my neck of the woods. Yeah.
So here's, and this is where I don't know where you're coming from. We haven't had this conversation, Steve. So
no.
We'll see where this goes.
Okay.
Here's the outlook that I have economically, and that and $8 getting a cup of coffee, right? It's just my opinion. But here's the things that I know when I look outside. I know that home builders, on average, build 1.5 million homes a year.
Yeah.
Every single year since 1948, right up until 2008. When the market crashed, so did home builders. Most of them went out of business. Since 2008, they've been averaging 800,000 to 900,000 homes a year, which means we're running roughly 700,000 homes a year short for over 10 years now. 7 million homes short is what we are. This is not a problem that's going to go away anytime soon. So if you think inventory is going to suddenly increase, I don't know where it would come from. We're 7 million homes short. You add to that the now record-holding generation, the millennials, the largest generation ever, are in their buying phase. They're not even at the peak yet. These things, for those who follow this stuff, it works on a bell curve. We're 2 years out from the peak of the number of millennials buying. So in 2 years, we're going to see the most buy. We haven't even seen it yet. And then for 5 years after that, we'll see the trailing end of the millennials. So you have massive demand that's still increasing to buy homes that we're 7 million short of. Now add to that, in our perfect little storm, baby boomers, the previous record holder for the largest generation ever. They're selling their homes and downsizing in droves.
Yeah.
What homes are they looking to buy when they downsize? The same homes the millennials are trying to buy in their first-time purchases. The same homes the builders haven't been building for over 10 years. That's an unbelievable supply and demand problem. It's
I
not
agree.
going to get fixed anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. And more than that, if you add to it, in the case of the millennial, first of all, the transfer of wealth that will occur with the boomers to the to the generations beneath them will be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of this country. In the history, it's not, nothing even comes close to it. Secondly, the boomers are right now they're 2 years in to what census bureaus predict to be the family forming years. So they're just getting started forming families. And yet many of them, less than 50%, own a home. So when the realities hit that generation and the transfer of wealth occurs, yeah, I think you've got the kindling here for a run that, I mean, the only thing that can stop it really is not enough houses and inflation. You know, if inflation rears its head, and it's possible. Right now, it's being held in check artificially, I might add. I think personally,
I don't think it's in check at all. But what we're being told is
not, well, we haven't seen the worst of what could come, right? I mean that's what I'm saying. I mean,
but let's add this. So these are all talking points. Is where we're going with this. When inflation hits, when we get into a bad economic cycle, you know, one of the best investments you can own, a home. Right now, because people don't study these things, right? And who would expect them to? You're going to hear people all the time say, "Oh, a big crash coming." I actually was in a discussion with a group discussion with a guy saying, "Yeah, we're 15% overpriced." Where in the hell do you get that nonsense from? First of all, no market is overpriced. The market is always right. The market is always right by definition. What people do is they say the last time prices went up like this was 2008. We know what happened then. Therefore, it's going to happen again. The one has nothing to do with it. 2008 is the only recession going back over 70 years where home prices went down. The only one. You know why? Because it was the housing market that caused the recession. Really, it was the lenders, but we were the cause of the recession. Otherwise, homes go up during most bad economic times because they're good hedge bets. They're good assets to own. So the idea that we're going up means we're going to go back down like 2008 is like saying apples and oranges are the same.
Yeah. Sean, I pulled this up because I recently researched this. So I got a couple of quick stats. And this, by the way, even in the mortgage and lending institutions, in the real estate circles in the federal government, they're calling this the silver tsunami. That's what they're referring to this as. Baby boomers right now own a third of all homes in the United States. They own a third. Millennials currently, and this was as recently as 2020, they only own 4% at the same, in comparable timeframes at the same age. Boomers owned 34% of homes in the United States. That gap is massive. And if boomers are able to, you know, I think what some of the millennials are waiting on is probably some transfer of wealth because affordability has been an issue, right? Yes. I mean, affordability right now for millennials, it's very different if you're trying to buy a home today as a millennial as to, even though interest rates were higher, homes were still more affordable for the boomers when they entered the real estate market. So this is a situation that's going to keep the markets moving forward steadily unless, again, I'm going to stand by my prediction here and say that the market's still it'll have its bumps, but it's still pretty much on a steady incline, not a decline, provided that we don't have like massive
the black swan event.
Yeah, right.
They're called a black swan event. Something we don't know. Something could happen that we don't know. But barring that, the two limit. And by the way, adding to your stats, first of all, we don't have any of the loans we had in 2008.
No.
Nobody out there has these time bombs that explode on them. No. I don't remember. It's just over. I'm sorry. 50% of all homes in the United States are owned free and clear.
Free and clear. No, that's true. Yeah, that's exactly right.
You can't have a market crash when there's nothing to crash.
Right.
Over 50% are free and clear. So you have a phenomenally strong ownership. We have demand that is off the charts. Off the chart demand and a built-in supply problem starting back in 2008. So the people that I follow, and I follow a lot of them, some are as low as, hey, we got 18 months to 2 years of this crazy market, all the way up to the people I tend to agree with, 10 years. Now, straight line, of course not. We have bumps where things go up and down. But this is just math. We're way short of homes. We have massive and Gen Z, is that who's behind the millennials? They're, what, 8 to 10 years out from their buying. So even as the millennials start to fade, they'll be coming in. It's an unbelievable time to be a real estate agent, is my big takeaway. What you said, Steve, about we've got the millennials and we've got the boomers. We've known this for a long time, the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of the world. There's no better time to be a real estate agent. I would be thinking about bringing a focus to one of those two groups. They're going to be the two massive movers of this whole market. Either get in good with millennials, understand how they operate and what they want, or if you're like me and you have more gray hair, then start becoming a specialist in the silver tsunami. But you've got 2 to 10 years of amazing real estate market time. You just have to be able to communicate to your clients what's happening and what the underlying math is so that they can see it as well.
Yeah, and I think that the opportunity is how you brand yourself as an expert, particularly as you target buyers, really is there's a huge opportunity, I think, for agents to look at what's my value proposition, what's my call to action on every piece that I send out into the universe. And I think if you're not incorporating some form of your expertise and knowledge on ghost inventory, coming soon, think, private exclusive, if you're not incorporating that as some mousetrap into what you see as interest, like an iceberg, what you see, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, is interesting. What you don't see is critical right now, and you have access to critical. You need to think that through with your marketing team, your MA, whoever you're using, to figure out, how do I message this? How do I set the mousetrap to get buyers to want to tap on me with the belief that I have access to inventory they can't see? That's a value proposition today, because buyers will crawl on glass to get to something they can't see right now. That's a fact. And
you mean like a private exclusive, Steve?
You've got to keep coaching. I'm sorry. You've got to keep coaching your buyers up to keep punching. You have to. You can't let them give in, because the gap will. Then they'll have to wait for this transfer of wealth, right? You don't want to have the conversation where you're going to have to wait till someone you love passes and pushes the amount of money you're going to need now, because the gap is spreading. You can't save fast enough, with appreciation being what it is. I'm sorry, Sean, you said something there, and I kind of just.
Well, I just love you tie it into one of the phenomenal tools Compass has: private exclusives.
Yeah.
Properties that are not on the market. That's a gold mine right now.
Yeah.
That should be. You should be touching on that in every marketing
Everything
that goes out. There's
yeah.
some mention of it. So here's one of these times we've got to talk about conversations to have with people. Psychologically, you always want to join the conversation already going on in someone's head. We never want to be argumentative or coming from a contra side. We want to join the conversation already going on in their head.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've done a good job of showing you guys how this is not like 2008. They're completely different situations. But is that the conversation going on in most people's heads? Yes. So that would be a great marketing piece. Hey, is 2022 going to be like 2008? I don't think so. Call me to find out why.
Yeah.
Is your home going to go down like it did in 2008? Or can we get you even more money? I know how, something that joins their conversation and then challenges them to reach out to you to find out what you know.
I would encourage you to start showcasing case studies as agents in your social media circles.
Look,
you think the market, you think it's time to wait, that the housing prices are going to come down. Here's a case study: the last 3 months. Take a buyer that you sold a home to 3 months ago, and to the best of your ability, scale the appreciation, and let most people realize that in those 3 months, their down payment was secured in appreciation.
Right.
Let that detonate in your head for a second. The down payment, they earned their down payment back in 3 months' time in some markets. I'm not saying it's true everywhere, but it's true in many of the markets. And if a home's appreciating it, just conservatively $25,000 a month, and they're buying a $600,000 house. Okay, all right. So do case studies. Take a client that you just sold a home to this year, and look at how much the gain that they've had in comparison, and do an example. Interest rates were on this date in February 6, 2021. Here's where they are today. All things being equal, this is what you need more of to buy that same house 3 months ago. So the idea that sitting on the sideline is going to serve you well with everything we're talking about is not right. And someone's got to be the voice of reality with these folks, because you're right, Sean. They're going to fall back into what the media tells them, which is bubble, 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 bubble. The only place the bubble exists right now that's possible, the only place, is in the northern central valleys of California, parts of the Midwest. Look at Florida, that wacky state. But Florida, the entire state is still below where they were in inventory as recently as 3 years ago. They can't get enough houses on the market fast enough. There's no bubble there. Yeah. So
I love your case study, by the way, and you can do it the opposite way. You could take real clients who didn't change the names, protect the guilty, but say, my clients, Jim and Joyce, 6 months ago did not pull the trigger on this home.
That's right.
Now they can't buy it. Even if they wanted to, they can't. Homes went up 17%. Did your salary go up 17%? There's a lot of teasers to get this out, to get them to come back. Now, what are the two tools? Because we got to mention more of our tools. Like you said, the private exclusives, phenomenal tool. We have access to properties that aren't out there yet. The other one is this unbelievable CRM that we all have for free. Because none of this matters if you're not reaching out to your sphere, to your people. Not just potential clients, but past clients. There's people out there right now that could sell their home, take the amazing equity run they've gotten over the last few years, and buy a dream home. Their dream home. And with rates where they are, their payment probably won't even change. Do they know that? Have you shared that with them? Right now, you can probably sell your home, put all that money down, and at these rates, we could get you into your dream home, the home you've always wanted, and your payment isn't even going to change. Is that worth taking a look at? We got to get this message out to people, because as Steve said, the press's job, generally speaking, is to sell press. It's to sell newspapers. We have to be the experts, and we have to let people know what's actually happening. And there are tough things happening right now. It's really hard to be a buyer. I mean, we're not trying to sugarcoat things. But if you think this is going to get better in the near term or even the long term, you're probably gravely mistaken. Okay. Do we want to see if there's any questions? Do we end up?
Yeah. I think that the only thing I would add is, think of your sellers now. If there are many of your clients that know they've done pretty well over the last year, some don't realize just how well. If they're happy in their home and they have no intention of moving, they're not crawling on Zillow every month to see, hey, what's been my appreciation using their best guess. But I think one of the best services you could offer your clients, in addition to case studies right now, would be to make a commitment to your database, your past clients, over the if you've sold in real estate in the last 5 years in San Diego, I mean every one of them, not in the last 2 years, but give them an analysis, an equity analysis. Don't even solicit, would you like to have this information? Send them an evaluation of their equity that is more spot on than anything Zillow can give them, and do that at least once a year. And if you think that could be overwhelming, because I saw Jason Cassianer earlier, some of our big agents that have sold hundreds and hundreds of homes. Well, that's a daunting task. Break it down in quarters. Take your database, break it down in quarters. Have your admin start doing the work. The data is not that hard to collect, and get that off to your database, right. At least annually.
Be the advisor.
Pardon me?
Be the advisor. Be the advisor.
Yeah, exactly.
Your largest asset.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to stop the recording. We'll see if there's questions real quick. Remember this, please. September is the last push for the fourth quarter. In October, all you're gonna be hearing about from us is business planning for the new year. What you're doing right now is how you set the rest of your fourth quarter. So make September a huge push. If anybody has any questions about the BevNAP calculation, this kind of thing, we're going to stay on for a few minutes. But you can always reach out to any one of us or any sales manager to help you use that.